Oh, sorry.
It's all right. No, I'm good. I just have to.
It talks about which implies one.
Yeah, we only
Second, sir.
talked about one.
All right, calling the meeting to order at 7:02. Has there been a declaration of public notice?
Yes.
All right. Order of business. There are no public appearances today. Okay, before we start with the consent agenda, I do have some things that I
Yeah.
want to.
Can I just
Yes.
ask a question? Now that we're meeting back in person, in terms of public appearances, we did have the thing with a public appearance before when we had the virtual meetings that they had to submit a request earlier in the day, right? Are we going to, I assume we're returning, just the public should know, we're returning to our previous.
Right, they can just show up.
They can just show up
Right.
and submit a form.
And fill out a
That's-
form, yeah.
Okay.
The forms are out, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, I just wanted to make that
Yeah.
clear. You can.
Good point.
All right. So, as many of you are aware of media reports citing a lawsuit against Monona Grove School District, we know that more than likely you'll have some questions, but we are unable to address them at this time. While that may feel unsatisfying, we cannot provide any details or any additional information. Please know that we do take this very seriously, and we will follow the process laid out ahead of us. The media reports and the likelihood of additional news coverage, social media, etc., impacts our students, our staff, and our entire community. Anyone in need of support is encouraged to reach out to school principals or a trusted adult or a colleague. Yesterday we had a serious tragedy in Texas, and we want to acknowledge the violence that erupted at Robb Elementary School in Texas yesterday that has once again left our country reeling. We are very devastated and hold all those impacted in our hearts. Please join me in a moment of silence for the victims, their families, and community. Thank you. All right, next, can I please have a motion for the consent agenda?
I move approval of the March 2nd, I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Susan Manning?
Aye.
Susan Fox?
Okay.
Peter?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Maureen? Aye. Ayes have it. Motion is carried. All right, next, our recognitions. I will do the recognitions tonight. So congratulations to both the 5th and 6th grade and 7th, 8th grade math teams on their successful season. They recently attended the Mega Math Meet, and the 5th and 6th grade team took home second place. Next, the high school hosted the solar array ribbon cutting and open house this past weekend. Thanks to everyone who was able to attend to celebrate the largest to date solar array on a Wisconsin kindergarten through 12 school. We're looking forward to the summer when it will be powered on and generating electricity. Media coverage can be found on the website. Monona Grove High School student and Ad Hoc Sustainability Committee student member Krishna Alwell also penned a guest column for the Herald that also can be found. Winnequa School had a majority of its music concerts with just 4th and 5th grade left to perform next Thursday. Students showed off their singing, recorder, and dancing skills to their loved ones, teachers, and fellow students. Of Photos are listed in board docs. This track season, Mackenzie Babick has run to 2 school records, the 800-meter and the 1600-meter. She has anchored the 4x800-meter relay run by Tony Kozik, Elena Kozik, and Allie Yunt to a number 2 spot on the Monona girls track and field all-time top 10 list. The WIAA tournament started this week with regionals at Oregon High School. Good luck to all track and field athletes competing in the postseason. Taylor Prairie School held its first spring showcase where students were able to visit the school and participate in outdoor crafts and activities. One highlight was the courtyard classroom garden, a new addition that students and a handful of Taylor Prairie staff worked on throughout the year. It was a beautiful night, and thanks to everyone who attended. Next are correspondence and announcements. The Monona Grove High School class of 2022 commencement ceremony will be held on Sunday, June 5th at 1:00 p.m. in the high school gym. The MG21 class of 2022 commencement ceremony will be held on Thursday, June 2nd at 7:00 at the outside arbor. In case of rain, the ceremony will be held at the Monona Community Center. Right, there are no administrative reports today. We'll go to board reports. Ad Hoc Sustainability Committee, Peter.
Thank you. We last met Thursday, and all we talked about was getting the details together for the event on Saturday, the ribbon cutting event on Saturday, the cable cutting event on Saturday, that we held as an outreach and publicity opportunity to sort of introduce the community and the wider community, both the school community, and we do want to have an impact, a greater impact in the state of Wisconsin, which is part of the reason that we did that. And we were pleased to see the media coverage that we got. We designed this project all along as a model for schools, something that, the idea is that it's something that any school can do, and so that it can have a greater impact. But in order to do that, we have to let people know about it, and this was part of helping people learn about it for their community. So the event on Saturday was very well attended. We fibbed a little. The original design the system would have been connected and online, or almost online right about now. The original plans, actually, the original plans is a year ago, but there's been supply chain disruptions and so on. And in fact, there's one part missing, which is the piece that allows them to interconnect to the grid. And that part is not here yet. It's been delayed. We anticipate getting it sometime in this summer, in the next couple of months, at which point we can turn the array on, and it'll be all hooked up and wired up, and then it can be live. And so it wasn't quite, the ribbon cutting wasn't quite ready to go, but we did want to have the event before the school year ended. So we kept with the original schedule. Turned out really well, we think, at this point. And now that this is behind us, the committee, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but we can get back to some, a little more, a few different things that that we're thinking about.
All right, I would agree, Peter, that I thought the presentation was phenomenal on Saturday. It was great to do a tour and actually see it. And Krishna did a phenomenal job in presenting. So I just want to commend the Sustainability Committee and what they did.
Thank you.
All right, next is Personnel Committee. Susan Fox.
All right. The Personnel Committee met actually on the 17th, I think. And we exchanged initial packages with the MGEA for paraprofessionals, and then we continued bargaining in closed session with the MGA and teachers. And we will meet again just as the board committee on June 2nd. That's coming up, so that's all I have to report at this point.
All right. Next are possible action items. First is policy revisions, second reading.
Again, I would just, again, review for the board that all of these were reviewed. These are Neola recommendations from our company. We reviewed every single recommendation in terms of the statutory changes, policy changes, case law, whatever may have affected the changes, and effectively accepted most of it, all of their recommendations. Generally, I would say they were to provide clarity, and sometimes they added a definition or a few extra words. It was just a lot of review work rather than new work, I think. We already passed the mascot one, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So, again, nothing new. Actually, they said the criminal history record check and employee self-reporting requirement was a new policy, but effectively we'd had other policies that effectively said the same thing. It was just a way of putting it all together in one
Well,
area.
this was the administrative version. For some reason, we
Right.
had it in the other two categories,
Yes.
but not this, so
Yes.
it's not really new. It's, in terms of what it does,
Yeah.
All right, can I have a motion, please?
I would make a motion that we accept the second reading of the policy revisions as presented.
May I have a second?
I would second the adoption of the policies, I guess, and not accept the second. I would say, I guess I would friendly amendment, if you just move approval of the adoption of the policies and then amendments of the policies as presented.
That's fine.
Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Second then.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, Susan Manning?
Aye.
Susan Fox?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Lorraine, aye. Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Next, it's listed as an action item, but it's just really, Peter's just gonna share some additional information regarding Hoc Sustainability Committee. So there is no action.
That Ad Hoc Sustainability Committee's been around for a little while, and we were sort of derailed by COVID originally, and then, and I'm the first to admit this, that although we're continuing our work, that when we got involved with this high school solar panel project, it's sort of beyond the original charge of the committee. We did get approval from the board to go that route, but it is beyond the original charge. However, I think there was a certain amount of carpe diem there. We had this opportunity that was too good to let pass up. Now that is our role of coming to the conclusion of that, other than additional sort of outreach, we want to continue the path we have with outreach and letting people know about it. And particularly in that is to provide information that other people can use to do other school districts particularly can use to build on our experience. However, that done, it is time for us to get sort of back to the charter and the advisory role in the charter, and in particular make recommendations, which is something we have sort of started talking about and coming up with a set of recommendations. And what it is we want to do going forward. I have discussed with Dan a bit about the role of the committee and the role of what he wants to do, because I think he wants to, the discussion revolves around expanding the capacity of the administration to do some of this work and sustainability for the district, and building in some capacity there, and which would be, and take that work away from the committee where it really doesn't really belong, because it is an administrative function. And so part of the recommendations, as I see it, will be to work with Dan to develop an understanding of what's going to happen, so we have continued continuity of action, in that if a committee itself, if a board committee continues, then it has a different and a separate role, an advisory role, but then there's capacity within the school district to move ahead with various other things that might come up that could be good for the district. Is essentially all I guess I have to say about this. So as far as the charge of the committee, at that time that we come up with recommendations, and then if we decide we want to continue, or in what form that we want to continue, then I think at that point we could look at any change in charge. And right now I'm at the point where I do want to fulfill this charge, which is to make a set of recommendations. So that's what we're going to be doing, I think, mostly in the next month or 2 months. This summer, the idea is to do that by July, and I do want to have some continuity with the business services director as we go through the change with the business services director, because Jared has been so important to the work that we've been doing.
Susan Fox, you have a question?
Yeah, I just, in reading through the grant again, just because I was putting our documents, I don't think I read it as carefully the last time, because I read it again this time. It really was exceptionally well done. So that's one comment. But the other comment is, it talks in there about continuing to look at feasibility on different buildings. And I just wondered, like when you do your report, if there are update on statuses of any of that may have been done, or what do you think still needs to be done? Or, because I didn't know if we'd done any of that yet, or if that's...
We have done sort of preliminary work on that, and that is that we sort of have a recommendation for what would be if, I don't know, actually it's not in there, but we have a document from McKinstry that was similar to what was developed on the high school that shows for every school what you could do and sort of what the optimum size is.
Okay.
And by optimum, that means the most cost-effective
Right.
thing you can do. Further evaluation, if you decide to move forward with these, then you have to do some engineering, because you do have to do some real work on the, looking at the load capacities of the roofs and so on. But what we would like to see, and I think this is going to be a recommendation, so we would put forth this plan as part of the recommendation, and with some sort of some thoughts about completion. I think at the very least, the completion be whenever you do a new roof on a building, that's the time to do these things. We have put sort of an end date, just a tentative thing, 2030. And if you do that, you will reduce, by 2030, you would reduce the district's energy consumption, grid electric consumption, let me rephrase, by 50%.
Yeah.
So that could be part of the goal. So we can suggest that goal. We can also suggest the goal related to roof. And I think perhaps before we move on that, we would get preliminary data right now about the condition of the various roofs around the district.
Yeah, that was mainly what I wondered, if you're going to address that in your report, and I assume you will. So that'd be great.
Yeah.
And then I think, after you do your report, we should have a discussion. We should formally accept your report and then decide whether to go forward as an ad hoc committee or a standing committee, because the membership's changed slightly, like the addition of Krishna, for example.
Mm-hmm.
He was new and he's not listed on this.
That's right.
So
Right.
he needs to be appointed. We need to go through the right procedures, the whole thing.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful addition.
Yeah.
So I just think, I'm glad to see that you've got a plan to do it in July. Sounds
Right.
good. Like that should give you time to kind of meet and get together and
Right.
do a report, and then we can discuss,
Right.
how to proceed.
Right, and really what's going on is I'm sort of, I always find that just having a draft is a great place to work from. So I am sort of been working on a draft that then can go to the committee to get ideas thrown in or out or whatever.
Right.
But that's sort of where the
And then we
status
can
is.
develop a new charge kind of from
Right.
that or whatever.
Right, and as I see it, I think that there are some really good people in this community who are just extremely knowledgeable about this and
Right.
want to continue to participate. And so and plus involving the students is also an interesting thing to do. And so there may be there might be a recommendation, or we might, as a board, we might want to consider continuing that. But again, I think the role changes
Right.
from where we've been. The role changes over time.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think that's something for the committee to talk about and for us to start
Mhm.
thinking about, and
Right.
because and with students as well. So
Right.
thanks. Okay.
And Green, I would just add another thing, as we start to get into that work. I think that we should discuss as a board, Peter has really done a nice job with this leadership in that committee. And I feel privileged to have been able to watch the meetings. But it does say that you can have, board members on that committee. And I think at the time when I was watching, that was a helpful time to be there because we were looking at policy and how to state a general directive for doing this work. And there may be other people on the board who have really good experience with this, who really want to be involved. But I think as you kind of wrap up that and may think about other members, you might think about putting on a
Sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
A board
We're
member.
always open to.
Well,
Just-
originally Dean was on, there were
Yeah,
board
Dean,
members,
yeah.
so it just,
Yeah.
so that's part of what I was saying.
Oh, that's right, Dean was on it.
Yeah.
Structurally, I was
Gosh,
thinking,
it's a long
if
time.
that's why I was saying it should be formally either continue as ad hoc or created with new membership
Right.
appointed, because membership is really appointed for a year or
Right.
at the end of a committee.
Right.
So when this committee ends, technically everybody has to be
And-
appointed, so then you can open it up to new people.
And obviously, when we started this, there was no intent that it would look like this.
Right.
But
No.
we had COVID blow
Right.
everything
I know,
up.
for 2 years.
And then we had this project come along that has been successful, but also is a different.
Right.
It was a different direction. So yeah, it
Yeah.
is time to get back. And all of these, you're absolutely right about all these things. We just sort of ended up in a different place.
Right, it was a different couple of years.
Right, yeah.
Got it.
And an opportunity came up, and it's like, there isn't too good to let go, and there isn't really a good way to do, other way to do this. We don't have, we've got these expertise, and so let's just do this, and then we
Yeah.
can move on, so. And don't give me credit. I've got all of these people on this
Yeah.
committee who are excellent,
wonderful
committed
group,
folks.
yes.
It's a wonderful group, excellent expertise in the community, and, I just, get out of their way.
Sometimes that's the best time.
That's right.
My question is, and this may be a Dan question, but you indicated some of the responsibilities will be taken on by administration or staff members of the district. So do we have a capacity?
Well, that's the discussion that has to
Okay.
be had.
Okay.
But there was discussion with Dan about having some responsibility, and I wouldn't say necessarily roles of the committee, I would say that building capacity that's related within the administration, so that there's some responsibility in the business services office
Got it.
for this thing, because it is a primarily financial, it's operations and financial decision-making. And it has a broader impact, but that's where the primary,
Right, once it's here.
it's where the primary responsibility lies.
Okay. Thank you. All right, next is the 2022-2023 Low Incidence Consulting Services Service Agreement.
I would move approval of the 2022-2023 Low Incident Consulting Service, LINC, service agreement as presented. And then you can ask a question about it after, say second it.
Second, and then
It's a
we'll-
routine thing, but.
You can
it's a-
second it and ask questions
Then
about
there's
It's
it.
a
discussion.
routine thing,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
something we already have.
Yeah, I mean, something like this, right?
I have no
Okay.
idea.
It's-
So
Okay,
I-
okay, well.
Again, I said to Lorraine.
Okay, well, it's appropriate, if
Let's
somebody
do it.
seconds.
I'll second it,
discuss
and then we
Second,
can
and then
talk
we'll
about
Then
it.
you can ask your question, Jared
Okay.
might want to say something about
Right.
Yeah,
that first.
so when I came in, I asked the board president, I said, could you tell me about the low incidence consulting services? I actually looked them up on a webpage because I didn't have any experience with this, and actually, probably Eric does. And if this is a service that we need for our students, of course I'm going to support this. I just want to know what it is and what gaps that'll be filling. I want to be assured that we can afford the $90,000 in the contract, and do we want to do that rather than hire an individual? I just need the rationale for the work.
So twofold. Krista can speak to the details of like what it's doing for the district. I can speak to the financial side. So the district does receive funding, federal funding for called flow through. So this money would come out of that federal grants for that financially. But I'll turn it over to Krista to talk about the specific services that need to be rendered.
So I have some questions too. I'm gonna wait till Krista, after Krista
What's the
explains.
federal
Krista, can you come up?
That's flow through.
Flow through? Okay.
Yep.
And we do.
It's-
cur-
we
do
get that on an
currently
annual
contract
basis.
out, But we do it through CSIP, don't we, or do we?
So there's a
submit?
combination, some CSIP provides, we do have partnerships or 6603s with some other school districts
Right,
where we
that's-
share, so.
Yeah, we've done that for a
Yep.
while now, so that's why to me, I think it's.
Well, I just had never heard of the company, and I
Okay.
was.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's feeling new, or maybe how we're talking about it is new. We've had a contract with Low Incidence Consulting for, I was trying to look at 5-ish years probably. This is our teacher of the visually impaired, and our orientation mobility services is what we contract for. And it's really consistent with previous years. So many years, several years ago now, we had our own teacher for vision, and since that, our provider retired, we have contracted with Lynx, and we have, I mean, just to give some context, we've had a really consistent, we've had the same service provider, the same teacher for our students this whole time, and she also does the orientation mobility now as well. So it's a single staff member that we work with, but it's multiple services that we would have to staff for if we were to hire, or if we were able to hire our own person. So we're really happy and satisfied with the service and the support we get from coordinating their team at Lynx. And it should be very similar to, it's not new or different. The amount changes every year depending on the student's IEP needs and what's in their IEPs and the amount of service we contract for. But it's been relatively consistent for us the last couple of years.
Harry?
How difficult is it to find a vision? Because if I'm understanding correctly, the primary reason that you were going with the consulting service is because the fact of the vision and also orientation and mobility, they can do both of those two things.
Yep, it's a twofold answer. So one is, are they challenging to hire positions? Yes, definitely. There are fewer practitioners than there are needs. But I guess what I should also mention is using a contracted service provider allows us to adjust the amount of service we need based on student needs. So for example, several years ago, we had a number of students graduate and our needs changed, and then students move in. So with your own internal staff member, it's a little harder to juggle that FTE every year. So our needs do go up and down over time. We've actually reduced the amount overall between vision and orientation and mobility currently, just given our student population. So,
Jared, how much is a full-time teacher with benefits cost? About 75, 80?
Closer to the 85 mark.
Okay.
Here?
How many students does this support,
I knew you were going to ask me that.
roughly?
Roughly, I want to say 3 students, but again, you have to think about students on the spectrum of blind to visual impairment. Some students are learning Braille and are very in a lot of need,
And-
and then there are some students who have just some consultation, support, evaluations. So I would say with evaluations and considerations during the year,
And
it does change, but.
okay, and how many hours, I mean, the services are provided?
It is in the contract, which of course I.
Is it in the contract?
There seems like there was supposed to be another thing attached, but it wasn't.
Yeah, we usually get an agreement.
While you're looking at that, I guess I'm just talking to the other board members. So my questions aren't about the services that need to be provided, because we have to provide those services for the students. My question is, is this something we should be looking at hiring a teacher for? And then I kind of go back to thinking, well, this isn't a consistent thing every year. It changes every year for the amount of services that we have to provide per the student. So let's say like it's 4 students this year, 3 students this year, it could be 1 next year. So having a consulting, doing it like this allows us more flexibility to adjust that, rather than if we had a full-time teacher that we would have to cut to part-time next year, or maybe, let go. And I know, I can speak from experience that, not so much with the orientation mobility, but with the vision, it's extremely hard to find consistent staff. I work with vision teachers all the time. Very, very rare to have consistent staff that is there all the time. So I do understand this. I mean, while 91 does seem high, I think it does benefit the district because of the flexibility. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Susan Fox?
Yeah, and the way you just explained it, Eric, is pretty much what I remember Dan explaining last year when this came up, because it does fluctuate, and as Krista just explained, we get more consistent service than we get with the scenario you described, if you have to let somebody go and get another person, and so that's why we've done it for several years this way, because it does work really well. So yeah, I think it's,
Yeah, and in
that's
10
why
months,
I thought it was
we can
a-
change, and 10 months is up, so if we have to adjust to
Correct.
40, it's a lot easier to do than to, cut a teacher from
Right.
full-time to part-time, so,
Right.
which that would happen
Yes,
most likely.
either it happens or it doesn't, or you're paying to maintain a teacher because you don't want to reduce hours and then you don't have the full need or capacity.
Right.
We've tried some things, we've done some different, like with sharing with other districts, but that's all dependent on what the needs are.
it
and
seems
yes,
less
spoken.
consistent.
Yeah, and again, like I was specifically for vision and orientation mobility, our level of satisfaction has been very high. We've received high quality services. We have a good, long-standing partnership with them. So I do feel really good about this.
Peter?
Vision, DHH, and orientation mobility, are those the only services they provide, or if we have other needs, can we go to them to step in?
So low incident specialists, those are the 3 that they offer. Vision,
Okay.
deaf, hard of hearing, is that we're not currently contracting for things for deaf, hard of hearing. That
Okay.
is a CISA 2 contracted item for us. It's currently, for example, a smaller need for us, so we haven't added that on through low incidents yet, but yeah, it's those hard to find, sometimes you have a lower need areas of service, vision, orientation, mobility, and deaf, hard of hearing.
What are they always called, low incident consulting services?
No.
That's where,
That's probably where I think.
yeah, because I was, Susan's like, I don't remember these guys, and I remember doing these
Yeah,
services,
yes.
but they changed their name.
You're right. They have
Thank
changed their
goodness.
names.
I thought, Susan kept saying,
Not the last
Andy
year, but it's
explained
been
this to
the
us
last
last
couple
year,
of
and I
years.
Well, he did, well,
Yeah.
it's not the fact that it's been contracted out, so that's
Yeah.
what I assumed, that we were contracting out,
Yeah.
it was the same service, so yeah.
But it's the same provider we've been using for
Same
several years.
provider, same organization.
And you are happy, and we are happy with the service
Students and
provided.
families are happy, yes. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
The only other thing I would add is that, for instance, in the Madison School District, sometimes teachers there's a school in Janesville. Students will go to the school in Janesville because they can provide better services, Wisconsin School for Vision and Impaired. And the district's still going to pay for that anyway. So this is one way to keep things in the district.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So we need to do roll call vote. Susan Manning?
Aye.
Susan Fox?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Maureen? Aye. Ayes have it. Motion is carried. All right. No discussion items, and future meeting dates are listed in board docs. Next board meeting is June 8th. Can I have a motion for adjournment?
I move we adjourn.
Second. There, can have.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carried. Meeting is adjourned.
It's going to be the shortest meeting we've ever had.
Not quite. It's close. It's close, though.
Close, yeah.
Dan's not here.
Signature, and the top line has to stay in the box.
Oh, my goodness. Pressure. Oh. This, right, that one, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's tonight's the kind of night where you think. Because you always go with
This
the
one?
brain, it's
Yeah,
really
this one.
strange.
Thank you.
Awesome,
All
thank you
right.
very much.
I get the
This
sign
is
on
signatures
today.
for our checks to Skyward. So
Here?
you have to be on this line,
Second line?
second line.
Oh, do I need to print too?
So we just have, we're asked her about that this morning.
And I need to make a.
She doesn't know. So I was gonna say, grab it, that's the
I'm gonna send it again.
Or just,
Oh, we're gonna learn about.
Yeah, if you wanna go to that too.
She doesn't know.
Let me know when you're doing it. I don't know if I have time, but.
I mean, I actually met with Jerry before to get an understanding of that, but it was so complicated.
And now you
There's no way I
understand
remember, yeah, I understand less, so like, just need like a little refresher.
Really interesting. I was thinking we better do the spring meeting.
You know, now that we're here in person, you don't have to do the roll call on everything either.
Oh, really?
Good.
Yeah, you got in the habit of that. It was kind of a recommendation that if we're on Zoom, that they can make sure that they know how everybody voted, to do the roll call vote. But
I don't know, it's a habit now.
I know it's a habit. You're allowed to just say all in favor, aye, and then you get to call.
Not necessarily.
And if anybody thinks you're wrong, the way it works, you get to call somebody and say all in favor, aye. And then you say it passed. And if anybody disagrees with you,